AEW Fyter Fest Night 2. Can AEW bounce back after losing to NXT in the ratings last week? Of course, AEW Fyter Fest, AEW Dynamite, whatever you want to call it, was actually ahead of NXT, the Great American Bash last week in the demographics, the key demographics, so it actually appeared higher on the ratings, but NXT did bring in more ratings last week, and I think NXT will do this week. That's a separate video, separate subject to talk about though. What we're going to talk about in this video is a match that we're going to see at Night 2 of AEW Fyter Fest, that being the 8-man tag team match. Yes, we're going to see FTR team up with the Young Bucks to face off against the Lucha Brothers and the Blade and the Butcher. Now, this is a really interesting one for me. I think the whole point of this FTR Young Bucks scenario at the moment is all about the eventual showdown between them, between the two tag teams, isn't it? I'm surprised coming into this, actually, the FTR, that they're still the babyfaces in AEW. It's very surprising, isn't it? FTR, even as a revival, they're a heel tag team. All their mannerisms are heelish. The way that they work, the way they talk, the way they walk, their attitude, they're heels. They're just a heel tag team. So it's been slightly surprising to see FTR coming at this point, and they're not there. Look, they haven't been complete babyfaces by any stretch of the imagination, but they've been civil to everyone, haven't they? They've talked about coming in and just wanting to have great tag team wrestling matches, prove that they're the best tag team in the world, and face up against the best tag teams in the world, and that's why they've gone to AEW. So they've sort of, I think they're definitely playing a slow burn here. I think there's no doubts that FTR will be a heel tag team and a big heel tag team in AEW. Now, of course, there have been rumours, actually, that while I talk about FTR being heels or baby faces, about a potential Four Horsemen type faction in the future, right? There's been subtle teases by Cody Rhodes and Arn Anderson that we could have a Cody Rhodes heel turn some way down the line, and a lot of people have speculated that this could lead to an AEW version of the Four Horsemen. What that would entail would have Cody Rhodes being the leader of the Four Horsemen. You would then have Shawn Spears as his second in command, because of course Arn Anderson is the coach of Cody Rhodes and Tully Blanchard is the coach of Shawn Spears. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard not only being a great tag team, but 2/4 of the Four Horsemen. And then also you would have FTR come into there to be the tag team group of the Four Horsemen. They've spoken openly that they would only let a certain few people actually be their manager, one being Arn Anderson, the other being Tully Blanchard, and the third, unfortunately, being Jim Cornette. So it's definitely possible that Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard could become the manager of FTR, and we could get this new 2020 version of the Four Horsemen in AEW. We've seen Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson scouting FTR in their recent matches, right? We've had FTR, Dax Harwood actually in a couple of matches has even thrown up the Four Horsemen hand signal, hasn't he, a few times? So they've certainly been teasing it. Whether we're not going to see it as soon as Fyter Fest Night 2 or anything like that, but it's something to consider when you think of what are FTR in AEW right now. They heel or they babyfaces. They are loose babyfaces, I would describe them as, but they're going to be heels very, very soon. And tonight, or might be the time that at Fyter Fest, that we might see the time that the Young Bucks and FTR finally implode and FTR turn full heels. This whole match, regardless of the other competitors in the match, is all about the Young Bucks and FTR, without a shadow of a doubt. That's the dream match, isn't it? That's the match that people were talking about even prior to FTR coming into AEW. It was, will we ever one day see an FTR, at the time, revival, face off against the Young Bucks? That's been the one that's been teased on being in the Elite for the longest time. That's why they're called FTR, right? It was F the Revival. That's why they're called FTR now. They're Fear the Revolt, Fear the Revival, whatever it means. That's what their name comes from. So they've got that history. They've teased it ever since FTR debuted in AEW. Of course, they made the save when the Young Bucks were getting attacked by Blade and the Butcher. So whether or not the Young Bucks and FTR remain on the same page throughout this match, eventually we're going to get the FTR versus Young Bucks match. Now, when would that be? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that that match between FTR and the Young Bucks would happen at All Out. All Out is AEW's biggest show of the year, isn't it? It's their ground zero for the inception of their company, really, isn't it? You had the All In, which was actually a Ring of Honor and New Japan show, regardless of what people want to say, but it was a Ring of Honor and New Japan show. but that was the genesis of All Elite Wrestling, and it's become their staple event. It's become their homecoming event. And this year will be no different. They'll try and have their biggest matches that they possibly can. They're going to be their biggest card of the year. Of course, there's still rumors about Chris Jericho going up against Mike Tyson potentially at the event. And another great match, another dream match you could do at the event would be the Young Bucks versus FTR. Now, in terms of a prediction for the match, and we'll talk about the other teams because there are more teams than just FTR and the Young Bucks in this match. In terms of prediction for the match, I do think FTR and the Young Bucks are going to win this one. It's just going to be interesting as to if they can stay on the same page or if they fully disintegrate or they just tease the dissension. I think it's going to be what I just mentioned there. I think we're going to see some dissension tease, but I don't think we're going to get a full FTR heel turn, not just yet. I think that comes later, and I think there's going to be added stakes to the Young Bucks versus FTR match that we have it all out, and I'll touch on that shortly. Now, in terms of the other tag teams in this match, of course, you've got the Lucha Brothers, the return of the Lucha Brothers to AEW in-ring competition. We saw them appear on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago. We hadn't seen Rey Fenix till just prior to Double or Nothing. Of course, he was meant to be in the Casino ladder match. He got injured on the Dynamite prior to that. It's a massive shame because, Rey Fenix would have done some absolutely insane stuff in that ladder match at Double or Nothing, but that's what happens with the high-risk style. You get hurt. It happens, and I'm sure it won't be... It's not the first time, and it won't be the last time when it comes to Rey Fenix, but certainly really glad to see him back. I've mentioned before, I think Rey Fenix could be a world champion in it just by singles in AEW. I really think he's that good, and he's that young. How old is he? He's like 23 or something ridiculous. He's just going to be a major, major superstar, isn't he, for AEW? It's out of a shadow of a doubt. And of course, Pentagon Jr. is back for AEW now. Pentagon Jr. was the reason we haven't seen the Lucha Brothers in AEW during this whole pandemic era, is because Pentagon Jr. was in Mexico, still lives in Mexico, so every time he goes to an AEW TV taping, he flies in from Mexico. Obviously, due to the travel restrictions, which are still kind of in place with the whole pandemic situation at the moment, those things have been lifted slightly. It's still not easy, especially going into Florida at the moment, considering the situation that Florida is in right now. But Pentagon Jr., he's able to make the shows now, so it's great to see him back. I'm a bit, maybe I'm a bit self-indulgent here when it comes to the Lucha Brothers. I really enjoyed the Lucha Brothers as a tag team. One of the best tag teams in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. The matches with the Young Bucks I thought were great. They do have the same Young Bucks problem that some of their matches lack some psychology when it comes to tag team wrestling. That's because I think I'm a tag team purist when it comes to that thing. That's why I enjoy FTR's matches. Some people call FTR boring. I think they're psychologically sound and fundamentally sound, and I think that makes the most sense. Their matches make sense, and sometimes the Young Bucks and Lucha Brothers matches don't. It's just personal opinion. I like a tag rape. That's all I'm going to say on that one. As much as I do enjoy the Lucha Brothers as a tag team, I would eventually like to see them do singles runs in AEW, purely because my first exposure to Pentagon Jr. was when he was in the likes of Impact Wrestling, and prior to that in Lucha Underground, right? You think of the matches he had with Vampiro and all of that craziness that he had there. Pentagon Jr. to me was just such a big star, and he's such a unique and great character, a unique look. Nobody looks like Pentagon Jr. in professional wrestling right now, and I just think that AEW could really utilize that to their advantage. Obviously, the roster is incredibly bloated when it comes to singles wrestlers, so maybe it's just a case of getting Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr. on the show. I just think when it comes to the Lucha Brothers in AEW that I don't want to say they could have done more, but remember when they had that first big signing announcement with AEW and they had those first few press conferences? The Lucha Brothers were heavily featured, along with the Young Bucks, as being like, we're going to have the best tag team division in the world, and these guys are going to be heavily featured in, and it just hasn't really been the case. Of course, they had those matches with the Young Bucks. They had the match at Double or Nothing and All Out and all of that fun stuff, and the crazy matches that they had. That was great, although just ever since then, they haven't done much. Now, it looked like we were going to get a bit more when it came to the Lucha Brothers earlier this year with Pac, and we were going to have Death Triangle. But of course, the pandemic made a massive halt to all of that, and we haven't seen any of that since. We've seen a few Pac promos and vignettes on AEW Dynamite recently, but he's in the same situation as Pentagon Jr. was, apart from Pac's over here in England. So hopefully this is the start of seeing more of the Lucha Brothers on AEW Dynamite going forward. I certainly hope so. They're just too good of a talent not to have on the show if you have them available to you. So I really hope that's the case when it comes to the Lucha Brothers. In terms of Blade and the Butcher, now when they first debuted in AEW, I really wasn't a fan. I think it was just the gimmick and the way that they were introduced. It was almost comical, wasn't it? Right? You had Excalibur be like, "Oh, it's the Blade, it's the Butcher, the Blade, the Butcher," and everyone was like, "Who the hell is that?" There was no vignettes, there was no promos. It made no sense. You had Ali dressed as a bunny, which was just weird, even though she'd been Ali a few weeks ago. Okay. And it was just weird. It was just odd. It was just really odd. They've gone away from that recently, which I think has been a good thing for them. It's slightly different now. They've been appearing in this like white gear or this white attire, which I think is quite funny. Blade's been cutting a few promos recently on AEW Dynamite. They actually hijacked FTR's truck that they drive to the ring recently on Dynamite, which was fun. Look, in the ring, they're solid. They're fundamentally sound. I would say the promo from Blade a couple of weeks ago was not the best promo I've ever heard. He didn't exactly cover himself in glory when it came to that one. But I think they're a fun tag team. They're a different tag team. I think the Butcher looks fantastic. He looks absolutely great. He wears the monocle. He's a big guy. Not as immensely aesthetically pleasing, but he's a big guy. He throws people around. He's got a crazy look in his eye. I mean, it's different. Everyone shouldn't look the same. Everyone should be have a fun look. And I do think they're an interesting tag team. Do I think they're the best tag team in the tag team division? Far from it. You've got so many tag teams, in my opinion, that are in front of them. Whether it is the Young Bucks, whether it is FTR, whether it is the Lucha Brothers, whether it is Private Party, Omega and Hangman Page, Santana and Ortiz, I think they're all quite far above Butcher and the Blade, but AEW needs to make their own gimmicks, and they need to get their own stars over, and having people like Blade and the Butcher be featured into a big and a highly promoted match like this at AEW Fyter Fest is the way to do it, so I don't have a problem with that. I think the interesting thing here is that AEW and the AEW on TNT Twitter accounts this past week actually posted some tweets with the wrong graphics in, which was an interesting look at this. So this match originally didn't have the Lucha Brothers featured in. It was actually scheduled to be the Young Bucks, FTR versus Blade, the Butcher, and the Superbad Squad, so Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc. And obviously those things changed once Jimmy Havoc is on hiatus now from AEW as part of the Speaking Out allegations. He's not suspended, as far as I'm aware, like Sammy Guevara, but he's undergoing treatment, I believe. Psychological treatment and other forms of treatment to deal with the problems that he has. So as far as I'm aware, he's still with the company, Jimmy Havoc, but he's on hiatus. But it's interesting to see that Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc were originally scheduled for that. They were getting a lot of TV time in prior to this and prior to Jimmy Havoc going on hiatus with the company. But I must say, having the Lucha Brothers in instead is, I mean, it's chalk and cheese, really, isn't it? There's Lucha Brothers replacing anyone. It's going to be an upgrade, and having the Lucha Brothers square off against FTR is, again, that's a dream match scenario. Those styles are so different. You've got the Lucha Brothers where arguably their biggest fault is that they have zero psychology when it comes to tag team wrestling. There's hardly any tags, there's no tag ropes, there's no cutting off the ring, ignoring the rules, etc. And then you've got the complete antithesis to that in FTR. It's all about cutting off the ring. It's all about tag team moves. It's all about the tag ropes, enforcing the rules, etc. It's old school tag team wrestling versus what is Mexican tag team wrestling now. It's just spots and no real psychology. So it's a complete clash of styles, which make the best kind of matches. So it's a fascinating matchup when they do face off in this match. I'm really looking forward to that one. Now, I mentioned previously that I think when FTR go up against the Young Bucks at All Out, I don't think it'll just be a straight-up tag match. Now, at the end of last week, during night 2 of night 1, of AEW Fyter Fest, the main event was Kenny Omega and Hangman Page defending the AEW World Tag Team Championships against Best Friends. Now, match aside, you know my thoughts on this. I don't want to chew my food twice when it comes to this. I wasn't massive on that main event. I didn't think it really delivered. I thought the best part was the entrance, really. It just felt a bit flat to me. But we had an interesting post-match angle between FTR, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page. Now, halfway through the match, FTR come out, they're drinking beers, they come out with a cooler, hand out some beers to the people in the crowd, and then post-match, when Hangman Page and Kenny Omega retain the AEW World Tag Team Championships, you have FTR come in the ring to congratulate them. They hand out a beer to Hangman Page, which, of course, he willingly accepts, as he would accept a beer from just about anyone, regardless of pandemic or not. But also, we have a beer being handed to Kenny Omega by FTR. Kenny Omega famously doesn't drink. Obviously, during the Stadium Stampede match, you had Hangman Page have a whiskey, and you had Kenny Omega having a glass of milk, which they shared during that match. So that was interesting. But then after the match, once FTR hand the beer to Kenny Omega pours it out, and a bit of disrespect, and we get a bit of a confrontation between FTR, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page. And I think this was a sign of where the future is going to go. I think post Fyter Fest and prior to AEW All Out, maybe at Fight for the Fallen next week, certainly could be something we see there. I think we're going to have an FTR versus Hangman Page and Kenny Omega match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, and I think those are going to be the ones who finally end the reign of Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. I think FTR obviously are thought very highly of by the people in charge in AEW, and I think they're going to get the tag team championships very quickly, and that's going to take the historic Young Bucks versus FTR showdown from an 8 to a 10. I think it's going to be an absolutely historic match, because I think FTR going into it are going to be AEW World Tag Team Champions. Now, that's just speculation on my part. I don't know if that's the case. They certainly could go in a completely different direction, but I think that's the direction at the moment that they're hinting at, and the one that makes the most sense. But we'll have to wait and see, and we'll also have to wait and see what happens at night 2 of Fyter Fest here. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What is your opinion on the FTR and Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers, Blade and Butcher match? What are your predictions for this match, as well as your predictions for night 2 of Fyter Fest? Let me know your predictions in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. There on the screen right now is at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.